What if I told you that the deepest longing of your heart, the thing you've been searching for all along, maybe even without realizing it, is not success, wealth, or even love in the ordinary sense, but something far more profound? Imagine for a moment that the entire purpose of your existence, everything you struggle with, everything you dream of, and everything you cling to, points toward one ultimate answer: your soul's journey back to its true home in the infinite presence of God. That is the very question Paramhansa Yogananda devoted his life to answering, and today, we'll explore what he revealed about the purpose of life, why we're here, what we're meant to learn, and how to live in alignment with the divine harmony of the universe. For many of us, life can feel like a whirlwind, a constant run of deadlines, responsibilities, and desires that keep pulling us in 1,000 directions. We chase after careers. We chase after money. We chase after relationships. We even chase after happiness through entertainment and distractions. And yet, after all the chasing, have you ever noticed how quickly the satisfaction fades? A new car becomes ordinary. A promotion feels exciting for a moment, but then the same pressures return. Even human love, as beautiful as it is, can bring pain alongside joy. Ygananda, with deep compassion, explained that this restlessness is no accident. It is the soul's way of reminding us that nothing in this world can fully satisfy the hungers of the spirit. It's as if God planted in us a hidden compass, one that keeps pointing us back to Him, no matter how skillfully we try to ignore it. Think about a simple question: why is it that even in the best of times, we often sense something missing? You can sit on a beach at sunset or laugh with friends at a dinner table, and still, in the quiet corner of your heart, a whisper comes: surely there is more. That whisper is the voice of your soul. According to Ygananda, the purpose of life is to awaken to that truth, that our real home is not in outward things, but in the boundless bliss of spirit. He called this state ever-new joy, an inner fulfillment so complete that nothing in the external world can disturb it. That, he said, is why we were given life, to realize who we really are, and to reunite with the divine source from which we came. Now, when we hear words like God, or Spirit, our minds often leap to big, abstract ideas or even dogmatic images. But Yogananda urged people not to get tangled up in philosophy that stays only in the head. He said God is not an intellectual puzzle. God is something we are meant to experience. Just as you can't understand sweetness by reading the word sugar in a dictionary, you can't understand the meaning of life until you have tasted the presence of spirit deep inside yourself. That is why he left India and came to America in 1920, to teach not just theology but the practical science of connecting with the divine through meditation, introspection, and right living. And here's the beautiful part: he didn't say you have to give up everything in your life to pursue this path. You don't have to abandon your family or your work, or move to the mountains to live in a cave. In fact, Yogananda taught that God is not against our joys. He said that the divine created this entire world as a school of experience, a vast playground where the soul learns lessons through pleasure and pain, through success and failure, until eventually it discovers that true happiness can only be found within. Life, then, is not a meaningless accident. It is divinely designed to guide us home. So ask yourself right now, what is life teaching me? Not just on the surface, paying the bills, raising children, climbing that corporate ladder, but on the deeper level of the soul. Every event in your life, every challenge, every heartache, every unexpected blessing, comes with a hidden message tailored for your spiritual awakening. When we begin to see life this way, even suffering itself starts to look different. Pain is no longer the enemy, it becomes a teacher. Loss is no longer injustice, it becomes a reminder not to tie ourselves too tightly to what can vanish. Every soul, in Yogananda's words, is a child of God, sent into this classroom of duality, good and bad, light and shadow, so that one day, having learned through trial and error, it will choose the everlasting joy of spirit over the fleeting thrills of matter. One of the most striking insights Yogananda shared was that the purpose of life is not simply to endure, but to awaken. Spiritual awakening doesn't mean rejecting the world, but seeing the world as it truly is, a play of energy, a passing show, a temporary stage where the eternal drama unfolds. Have you ever watched a play or a movie so intense that for 2 hours you completely forgot yourself? You laughed at the characters, you cried at their struggles, only to realize once the credits rolled that the real you was never actually in danger. Life is just like that. The soul identifies with the role it plays, the mother, the businessman, the artist, the student, and forgets its true nature as a divine being. The purpose of life is to remember. And this remembering begins with one simple but powerful shift: turning our focus from outside to inside. Yogananda said repeatedly, "The kingdom of God is within you." That was not meant as poetry. He meant it literally, that hidden inside each of us is a wellspring of joy, wisdom, and love that far surpasses anything external. When we take time to meditate, to sit quietly, to silence the storm of our minds and listen to the still voice within, we begin to taste that inner kingdom. Through that experience, you discover your purpose is not out there somewhere, it was within you all along. Of course, meditation alone is not the entire path. We live in this world, and how we act in it also reflects our inner progress. Yogananda emphasized balance, inner communion with spirit, paired with outer action rooted in love. He encouraged people to treat daily life as an extension of their meditation, to see God in every person they meet, and to perform their work as an offering to the divine. The purpose of life is fulfilled when our inner awakening and outer actions merge, when everything we do becomes an expression of truth, kindness, and harmony. Now, maybe you're wondering, if the purpose of life is so clear, why don't we see it more easily? Why is it so hard to live in constant awareness of spirit? The answer, Yogananda explained, lies in the power of delusion. Just as clouds can obscure the sun, our attachments, desires, and fears obscure our inner light. The world is intoxicating, it lures our senses with temptations, keeps our minds racing with worries, and makes us believe happiness lies around the next corner. That is not because the world is evil, it is because the world is a temporary test. God created the drama of life with enough pleasure to awaken our interest, but enough suffering to remind us that true joy is elsewhere. Every soul, at its own pace, must learn to see beyond the glitter and discover the gold within. So here's the real question, how do we live in this world without being trapped by it? Yogananda gave a simple but powerful solution, live with God at the center. Instead of asking, what do I want, he urged us to ask, what does God want? What will bring me closer to truth, to love, to joy? When that becomes your guiding compass, life itself transforms. Work becomes worship. Relationships become mirrors of divine love. Even obstacles become stepping stones. And gradually, the restless search for meaning settles into a deep, unshakable peace. Can you imagine living that way? Imagine waking every morning with the feeling that your life is not random, that everything you do carries divine significance. Imagine meeting challenges not with fear, but with the calm assurance that they are here to strengthen your soul. Imagine looking at every person you pass on the street and silently reminding yourself, here, too, shines the same divine presence that lives in me. That is how Yogananda lived, and that is how he invited us to live, not waiting for heaven after death, but creating heaven on earth by realizing God within ourselves. Yet, the purpose of life is not fulfilled by belief alone. It is fulfilled by experience. Yogananda often compared spiritual truths to the taste of a mango. You can listen to doctors describe it, you can watch others enjoy it, but unless you bite into it yourself, you'll never know. The practice of meditation and devotion gives us that taste. Over time, through steady effort, the soul touches states of peace so sweet, so real, that all doubts vanish. Then you know, not from theory, but from experience, that the purpose of life is God realization. And once you've had even a glimpse of that divine joy, nothing else can ever fully distract you again. This is why Yogananda's message continues to inspire millions even today. He was not simply another teacher reciting old scriptures. He was a living example that the deepest questions of life can be answered, that the mysteries of existence can be solved through direct communion with Spirit. His presence radiated peace, his words carried truth, and his practices gave people a step-by-step path to discover their own divine potential. The purpose of life, in his teaching, is not some elusive secret, it is the most natural thing in the world, to know yourself as a soul, to live in tune with the divine, and to share that joy with others. And so, when we ask, what is the purpose of life, the answer is not far away. It is as close as your next breath, as near as the stillness within your heart. Every day, every moment, is an invitation to awaken. Right now, as you listen, that invitation is alive in you. The question is, will you answer it? Will you answer it? That is the turning point of life's journey. The invitation is always there, but too often we postpone it. We tell ourselves, I'll seek God when I'm older, or, when my life is less stressful, then I'll meditate, or, once I achieve my goals, then I'll think about purpose. But Yogananda spoke directly to that hesitation. He reminded us that waiting for the perfect time almost always means never. He said, the season of spiritual awakening is always now. Why? Because now is the only moment we truly have. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow is uncertain, but the present moment is the sacred doorway to eternity. The purpose of life doesn't begin someday, it's already waiting for you to step into it this very breath. So how do we take that step? How do we move from simply hearing these truths to actually living them? Yogananda gave practical, profound guidance. He spoke of 3 essential pillars that support the awakening of the soul: meditation, right action, and devotion. Each one nurtures a different dimension of our being, the mind, the will, and the heart. And together, they harmonize us with our true purpose. Let's begin with meditation. Yogananda was called the father of yoga in the West, because he introduced not just physical posture, but the deeper science of meditation, methods to still the restless mind, calm the nervous system, and open the heart to direct communion with spirit. You see, one of the reasons we lose touch with purpose is that our minds are constantly noisy, endlessly racing with plans, regrets, and distractions. Meditation is the practice of turning off that noise, of sinking beneath the surface waves of thought, until you discover the vast, expansive stillness underneath. In that stillness, you find what Yogananda described as ever new joy, not excitement that comes and goes but a stream of peace that never runs dry. When you touch even a glimpse of that state, your sense of life's meaning begins to shift. What once seemed urgent starts to feel less important, and what once felt impossible begins to look necessary. Life takes on new clarity when the inner light shines. But he also warned, meditation is not a quick fix. It requires patience, discipline, and perseverance. Just as an athlete must train regularly to develop strength, the soul develops inner awareness only through steady practice. He often said, a little meditation every day is better than long meditation once in a while. Even a few minutes of daily inward turning begins to rewire the mind. And over time, it leads to profound transformation. If you've ever felt unworthy, restless, or incomplete, meditation gradually reveals to you that your true self is none of those things. Your true self is already whole, radiant, vast as the sky. You don't fabricate purpose, you discover it within yourself, in silence. The second pillar is right action. Meditation alone, Yogananda explained, is incomplete if our outer lives remain in disharmony. True purpose is lived not just in private moments of prayer, but in every decision, every word, every relationship. Right action means aligning daily conduct with the higher truths we glimpse in meditation. It means acting with honesty, compassion, and love, even when the temptation is great to do otherwise. For example, when you choose to speak with kindness instead of irritation, when you forgive instead of resent, when you give instead of cling, that is right action. Each of those moments draws you closer to the inner purpose of life. Why? Because every action either reinforces the illusion of separateness or confirms the truth of our unity with spirit. Right action is about remembering, again and again, that every person we encounter carries the same divine spark we ourselves are seeking to realize. Now, here's where many of us stumble. We think spiritual living means perfection, that unless we never get angry, never feel weak, never make mistakes, we're failing. But Yogananda was gentle on this point. He said the purpose of life is not to achieve flawless behavior, but to keep striving to bring our actions into closer alignment with our ideals. Every saint was once a sinner who refused to quit. Every soul is growing, reaching, learning. Right action is not about guilt but about growth. When you slip, you get up again. When you forget your purpose, you remember again. And each step renews the will of the soul to walk toward truth. The third pillar he taught is devotion. If meditation is about awakening the mind, and right action about strengthening the will, devotion is about opening the heart. Without love, the spiritual path becomes dry, mechanical. With love, every moment turns luminous. But this love is not sentimental attachment, it is the soul's longing for God, the deep cry of the heart that says, I want to know you. I want to feel your presence in everything. Yogananda spoke of cultivating a relationship with the divine as friend, beloved, companion. Pray not with dry words but with the intensity of a child calling for its mother, or a lover yearning for the beloved. That kind of devotion awakens a fire inside us that nothing can extinguish. And when that fire burns, the purpose of life becomes not an abstract concept but a living reality, an urgent need of the heart that reshapes everything. These three, meditation, right action, and devotion, are not separate paths but threads woven into one fabric. Together, they create the conditions for realization. And when realization dawns, even in small glimpses, a dramatic shift happens. You no longer live only for yourself. You begin to feel connected to others in ways you may never have imagined. You see that your purpose is not just about your personal happiness, but about serving the awakening of all. Yogananda said, when you are filled with divine joy, you cannot help but want to share it. Just as a lamp naturally radiates light to all around, the awakened soul naturally radiates love, wisdom, and hope. That is part of the divine plan, that each soul, upon realizing its own purpose, becomes a beacon to guide others home. But this does not mean that living your purpose requires grand gestures. You don't have to start a movement or perform miracles. You can fulfill your purpose in the simplest acts, speaking a word of encouragement to someone in despair, bringing calm into a tense situation, silently blessing people you meet throughout the day. When you carry God in your heart, even the smallest action becomes infused with sacredness. And in that way, your life becomes a spiritual offering. Still, perhaps you ask, what about suffering? If life's purpose is joy, why is there so much pain in the world? Yogananda addressed this directly. He said suffering is the soul's way of learning how to seek true joy instead of false substitutes. Pain pulls us back to the eternal. Think of it this way, if earthly happiness were perfect, we would never look beyond it. We'd remain content with shadows, never discovering the sun. So life gives us both pleasure and pain to awaken discernment, the ability to distinguish what is passing from what is eternal. Our hardships, then, are not punishments but opportunities to grow closer to our purpose. They strip away illusions, compelling us to look inward. When we meet suffering with the attitude of, what lesson is God teaching me through this? Even hardship becomes a form of grace. In fact, some of the most radiant souls are those who have endured great trials and transmuted that suffering into spiritual strength. They discovered that nothing external can define them, not loss, not failure, not fear. They realize their purpose is rooted in something deeper, unshakable. You and I share that same potential. Within you is a strength greater than any circumstance, a joy untouched by sorrow, a freedom wider than any limitation. That is your birthright, your destiny, the real meaning of life. And here's where it gets even more profound. Yogananda didn't only say that our purpose is to find God. He also said that God created the universe so he could experience himself through us. You are not just a seeker returning to spirit, you are spirit, temporarily wearing a human form, experiencing, learning, remembering. When you awaken to that truth, life takes on a cosmic beauty. You realize your journey is God's journey. Your joy is his joy. Your suffering is his experience of learning through you. The divine play becomes vivid, and you no longer see yourself as small, separate, or forgotten. You recognize yourself as a unique expression of the infinite. That realization, that union, is the supreme purpose of life. So what does that mean for how you live tomorrow, or the next day, in ordinary circumstances? It means waking up not with dread, but with the quiet thought, this day is sacred. This life is sacred. I am here to love, to serve, to grow, to discover God in every situation. It means bringing mindfulness into daily work, turning stress into prayer, chores into meditation, interactions into opportunities for kindness. It means letting go, little by little, of attachments that bind you, whether material, emotional, or mental, and learning to stand free in spirit. And through it all, it means remembering that the purpose of life is not out there. It is within you, always present, always calling. As you walk this path, there will still be struggles, yes. There will be doubts, distractions, and setbacks. But let those moments not discourage you. Remember, the soul has been on a long journey, through lifetimes, through endless lessons, and every sincere effort you make brings you closer to the goal. Not one prayer is wasted, not one act of kindness forgotten, not one meditation fruitless. Each step echoes in eternity. Yogananda assured his students, your soul is destined to be free. It's only a matter of time. That is the promise of life's purpose, that no matter how lost you feel, the ultimate victory is already written into your being. You cannot fail in the long run, because you are made of God's light. Sooner or later, that truth will dawn in you with blinding clarity. And when it does, you'll realize that all along, the answer was simple. The purpose of life is joy, joy that comes not from possessions or positions, but from union with the divine. That joy is who you are. That joy is why you were born. That joy is what will carry you beyond every pain, every fear, every illusion, into eternal freedom. And the greatest part is, you don't have to wait for death or heaven to taste it. You can begin right now, in this very breath, in this very moment, by turning inward, by opening your heart, by living with love. Life's purpose is unfolding within you already. All that remains is to say yes.